as President-elect Joe Biden prepares to step into the White House in January as the 46th President of the United States. It seems winning the election might have been the easiest part. His task force is already at work identifying key agendas for the new administration and swiftly naming a COVID-19 task force comprising the nation's top doctors and public health experts on Monday. As all previous president-elects have done, Biden's building up his government for a seamless transition. But with incumbent President Donald Trump still refusing to acknowledge the outcome of the election, some observers are questioning whether there will be a smooth transfer of power. There are also more long-term concerns as the Republicans are fiercely fighting to retain their seats in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And this, of course, would make it rather difficult for the Democrats to pass key legislation. We discuss the challenges that Joe Biden faces as he forms a new government. And joining us today is Henry Olsen, Washington Post columnist and Senior Fellow of Ethics and Public Policy Center and the author of The Working Class Republican, Ronald Reagan and the Return of Blue-Collar Conservatism. It's lovely to see you again.
Thanks for having me back.
We're also joined by Tony Kravaric, the chairman of the Republican Party in San Diego County. It's also great to see you back.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we'll start with you, Mr. Olsen. Now, President-elect Joe Biden, he's launched his COVID-19 task force, of course, and he's working on economic recovery as well. Do you think this was a first good step in terms of uniting the American people, as he said he would do?
He certainly started on the two things that Americans of all political stripes hope that we can solve. The question is always going to be the details, and that is something on which the two parties will often disagree. And I can hope that the president-elect, when he takes power, which is in 60 days, will have a compromising viewpoint and listen to Republicans as opposed to dictating. If he listens, I think there'll be many receptive ears.
And do you see President Trump conceding anytime soon? And how do you think his party should be acting during this transition process?
I think that the president...
The question's for you, Mr. Olsen.
Yes, I'm trying to speak. The president is not going to concede very soon. I think what's going to happen, though, is that the Republican Party is going to wait for what's called certification of the results. It takes another 3 to 4 weeks under American law. And at that point, if there's no hard evidence of fraud, I think you'll see the Republican Party fall behind and say that the president-elect is the president-elect. But we have a long process for determining when an election is actually official. It allows us to check for errors. And Republicans are going to give President Trump's lawyers time to find any such errors before jumping into the fray. But I expect those errors are not going to be found and that Republican leaders will congratulate the president-elect later this month or early in December.
Now, Mr. Kravaric, it seems that some members of your party are staying quiet while others are congratulating the president-elect. Others are, of course, backing President Donald Trump's claims that the election might have been a bit faulty. But, well, you've been chairing the Republican Party in San Diego for more than a decade, and you've seen a number of presidents come and go during your time. What do you think really lies ahead for the Republican Party after Mr. Donald Trump leaves the White House, and what will the party stand for going forward?
Well, as Mr. Olsen mentioned, we have a process for adjudicating this, and so everybody wants to jump to coronate the next president. If your viewers will recall, we had a similar situation in the year 2000, where the media crowned Al Gore the vice president-elect, and that was not to be. So we have a process, and this will take some time. Eventually, we will have the new Congress will convene on January 3rd, and they will count the electors' votes on January the 6th. Sometime before then, around that time, if not before, then we will know who the next president will be, if it will be President Trump or Vice President Joe Biden. What is interesting is that while you have 70 million voters that voted for President Trump, and they're all, of course, wanting him to be president and are at various degrees of upset right now, there's no rioting in the street. Nobody is suggesting that. People just want the process to take its hold, and regardless of what happens in with the presidency, President Trump has changed the Republican Party into a blue-collar party, and none too soon. So the MAGA doctrine, if you will, is here to stay. And the major point of that, of course, is America first. For far too long, I was born and raised in Europe. I came to America for a reason, because America is the greatest country in the world. As the largest superpower, we have a responsibility, but our responsibility is not to be the pushover everywhere in the world. And it's about time that somebody stood up for America, putting America first, and not have one-sided deals, and invite and work with people on a basis where we can both come out of the deal as happy, but no more one-sided deals. And the Republican Party is from now on a blue-collar party.
So we can't forget that over 70 million Americans did vote for President Trump. And now, Mr. Olson, while Joe Biden did win the presidency, his party isn't doing as well as some anticipated in the House and Senate races. What message does this tell us, really, about what American voters want to see from the White House and their lawmakers?
I think what it says is that they want what they've wanted for 20 years. They want some degree of cooperation and some degree of balance. They don't want to give Democrats complete control of everything. And it's likely that the Republicans will control the Senate and thereby have a place at the table for any legislation. Americans would like to see the extremes of both parties tone down their rhetoric, and they would like to see both parties come together to work on common solutions. And the challenge is going to be whether President Biden, if he does get through, as it's expected, the final vote counting process and certification process, the question is going to be whether he's willing to take the political heat from his own party to provide that leadership, or whether he's going to play the role of a uniter when doing what many presidents have actually done, which is divide by leading in a wholly partisan manner. That question has left to be decided.
So the last stages, Mr. Olson, of Joe Biden and Donald Trump's campaigns were all about winning over the white working class, suburban women and ethnic minorities. And these, of course, were the groups that toppled the last election and handed Mr. Trump the presidency. And many of them still backed him in this election as well. So as Mr. Kravaric just mentioned, are the working class and the minorities the key demographics for the Republican Party now? Is that what they stand for? And also, if the Democrats won the White House purely with their anti-Trump campaign, then can they say this was a real success for them? Do they have some soul searching to do as a party?
I've been calling for the Republican Party to become a blue-collar party since 2010. I wrote extensively about that in National Review. I wrote my book about that. I write in the Washington Post about that. And today it is finally obvious to all who have eyes to see that the Republican Party's future is as a multi-ethnic, working-class party with strong roots in the middle class, not as it used to be, a party that was tilted towards the high income and highly educated. The Democratic Party is massively split. It was only unified because of opposition to Donald Trump. It has a leftist wing that wants to push for fast, rapid transformation, a center-left wing that wants modest reform, and they depend on centrist voters who not so long ago were Republican, and some of whom voted for Republicans for Congress and the Senate just last week. They have not only soul searching to do, they have to get this right for their party within 60 days when the president starts governing rather than talking. If they get it wrong, it presents a massive opportunity for the Republican Party to come back and become the new national majority as early as 2022.
And Mr. Kravaric, if we see a Biden presidency paired with a Republican Senate, then how cooperative can we expect Mitch McConnell to be with the Democrats' key agendas? I mean, what kinds of issues do you think will be the toughest for the Democrats to get through?
Well, first of all, it should be noted that I actually agree with the Washington Post reporter, and that is that the Republican Party is becoming the party of the blue collar, and the Democrat Party has become the party of the elites, the party of Wall Street, the party of big corporations. And then on the other hand, it's kind of like a barbell approach. You have the elites, all of whom, mind you, were against President Trump. The media, Wall Street, musicians, and the whole pop culture. And then you have an extreme leftist wing that's now Joe Biden's to own. And Joe Biden wasn't brought there by he was brought there by far leftists in his party. And I'm from California. Senator Kamala Harris is from California. She's far from any moderate. So whether President Trump is reelected or not, 2024 presents a tremendous opportunity. And in the meantime, Mitch McConnell is probably the savviest political operator in Washington, D.C., and the American people put Republicans in charge of the U.S. Senate. I know there's still 2 more seats to be adjudicated in Georgia, but there will be no packing of the court. There will be no socialized medicine. There will be no tax cuts, and that's important. And so divided government. We have a genius in this country where it's very rare that one party controls everything. And through that, we work our way through history with small incremental changes. But there's no doubt the Trump flipping the Republican Party around to become a blue-collar working class. I was inspired to come to America by President Ronald Reagan. The other gentleman also wrote a book about President Ronald Reagan. And I think the party may find its way back to those roots.
Well, it looks like the Democrats are in for quite a tough ride in the Senate if the Republicans hang on to their majority. And Mr. Olson, in that regard, how are the Democrats going to have to really prepare to work with their GOP counterparts? I mean, how important is it for Joe Biden to keep his cabinet members rather moderate rather than bringing in the far left, I suppose?
Joe Biden has to make a decision, and he has to make it very soon. Is he going to try and govern the way he campaigned, which is to say from the center to the center left, or is he going to try and govern the way the center of the Democratic Party wants him to govern, which is to say from the center left to the left? If he chooses the latter, he'll keep his party together, but he will have nothing of value to offer Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate. If he is willing to work with Mitch McConnell, he will anger his party's left wing. He has to make a choice, and the longer he delays making it, the more fatally crippled or advanced his presidency can become.
And Mr. Cravaro, it seems that now Americans, they're really calling for moderation between both parties. I think this election has proven that. And, well, in that regard, how do you think that reconciliation can be achieved in the political spectrum, as Joe Biden has said he would try and do?
Well, there's only one party that's extreme in America these days, and that is the Democrat Party. President Trump got us out of unnecessary foreign wars. President Trump said no to socialism. The Democrat Party is pulling towards socialism. The Democrat Party does not have any tolerance for religious freedom. President Trump said, is for religious freedom. Democrats are all too eager to give away the store to the world, while President Trump stands up for American workers. And so there's nothing extreme about standing up for Americans, not getting into useless wars, letting people keep more of what they earn, and keeping government largely out of people's lives. There's nothing extreme about that. That is the only, that's the way America was founded. Those are the founding principles. And you have the Democrat Party, a party that's now controlled and hijacked by the extremes. Not the least of which being BLM, which is basically just a Marxist movement. And so these are the people now who want a piece of if Joe Biden becomes president, they're going to want a piece of him. And like the other gentleman mentioned, you cannot reconcile the two. The Democrat Party, if they pull this off, they got a weird coalition going, and they have some real extremes in there. The Republican Party will remain mainstream, America first, blue-collar workers first, and letting people keep more of what they earn and keeping the government out of their lives, which are the founding principles of this country.
Now, Mr. Olson, of course, there are many people who may refute what Mr. Cravaro just said, but there are, of course, very different narratives coming from both sides. And as close as the race was, it seems that Americans are very much divided as a nation. What do you hope to see over the next 4 years to bridge that kind of divide?
The president is the leader. The president needs to decide if he wants to try and bridge the divide or if he wants to govern from the Democratic Party consensus. The Democratic Party consensus cannot bridge the divide because it does not take the concerns of the 71.5 million people who have voted for Trump seriously. If the Republicans in this country are part of the discussion, then the president can help to bridge the divide. But that means taking Republican views on religious liberty, on freedom of conscience, on national interest over global interest, on a host of issues seriously, and that means making the left of his party unhappy. He has to make that choice. And if he wibbles and wobbles and goes back and forth, then he'll please nobody, because he'll show Republican voters that he can't be trusted, and he'll show Democratic left voters that he can move farther in their direction with just a little more pressure. If he wants to bridge the divide, he has to make that his overriding goal and be willing to take the heat from his party's left. And if he doesn't do that, it's not going to happen.
And well, hopefully we'll see some promising start to unifying the two different narratives there from Joe Biden in the next coming days as he prepares for presidency. This is where we're going to have to end the discussion today. But that was Henry Olsen, Washington Post columnist and a senior fellow of the Ethics and Public Policy Center, as well as Tony Kravaric, chairman of the Republican Party of San Diego County. Thank you both very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you as always for watching. Hope you join us again tomorrow for more global insights from experts around the world. Have a good one wherever you are. Goodbye.